Today we're going to be talking about measures of central tendency. Numbers called measure of central tendency can be used to describe the middle or center of the data. The most common of these measures are mean, median, and mode. The mean is the sum, where you add, of the numbers in a set of data divided by the number of items in the pieces of data. The mean is the balance point of the set of data. You may also know the mean as the average. The median is the middle number in the set of data when the data is arranged in ascending order. Remember, ascending is least to greatest. If the data has an even number, the median is the mean or the average of the two middle numbers. Mode is the numbers or number of item or items that appears the most in the set of data. So a few helpful hints. The mean is most useful when the data has no outliers. Okay, an outlier is a data value that separates from the rest of the data. So for example, if our test scores average in the 80s and 90s, and then you have someone that made a 40, the 40 is considered an outlier. When this happens, you cannot use the mean to describe the set of data because it'll skew it to a lower average. You would have to use the median to describe your class test scores. So the median is, again, used when you have an outlier in your data set and there are no big gaps in the middle of the data. And mode is when the data set has many identical numbers. Use these key tips when trying to identify what's best to describe the set of data. The range is the difference between the greatest number and the least number in the set of data. The range is not considered a measure of central tendency. Only the mean, median, and mode are. So if a question asks you, what is the best measure of center? Range is not an option. So the range is the highest minus the lowest, or the greatest minus the least. An outlier is a number that is not part of the group. The outlier affects the mean. A cute phrase that'll help you remember the difference with all of these is in blue here. Add, divide, then you find the mean. Mode's the one you see the most, and median's in between. Turn to the next page. Let's do some examples. So here it's asking you to choose what would be the best measure of center. So would you describe the data with mean, median, or mode? So example 1, Betty has received the following scores on her math test: 75, 82, 68, and a 95. What is the best way to determine her current score in the class? So what I want you to do is find the average of these four numbers. So add them all up and divide by the number of numbers. So 4. So if I add together all those four numbers and divide by 4, I get 80. But then if I do this without the outlier of 95, I would get 75. So without that last test score having a big impact on your grade, what it does is it skews your average up to an 80. So what you usually perform is your 75, 80, 70s, 80s range, but because you made that 95, it skewed your grade up. So because it does that, your best way to describe your data is to use the median or the middle. And just to practice that, you would list these in order from least to greatest. There's an even amount, so you would take the average of 75 and 82 to get a 78.5, which is a better description of your grades. In example 2, Miss Smith loves M&Ms and wants to determine which color is least represented in the bag. So here, you don't have any numbers, and you're talking about something that's there, the least amount. So you're actually going to use the mode to describe it. In example 3, Julie is practicing for a marathon. Her current times in minutes are 5.2, 7.5, 6.2, 3.9, 4.1, 5.1, and 6.3. She wants to determine which run time is in the middle. So we describe that. Anytime you see the word middle, you're going to talk about the median. In example 4, the pet store is trying to determine which hamsters are most popular. Okay, that's your key word right there, most popular. So you need to see which ones sell the most. That's mode. Example 5, the weatherman wants to share rainfall stats with his viewers. How would he share monthly rainfall this past winter? Okay, so once you get this list of numbers, since you're talking about stats, it will be described with mean. Turn to the next page. So some guided practice. What I want you to do for this table is find the mean, median, mode, and range for each set of data. Remember, for the median, list your numbers from least to greatest, and then answer questions 1 and 2. So here are your answers. Compare them. In the first row, your mode is 8 because there are 2 8s and there are only one of the other numbers, so 8 appears the most. Median, your 8 is the middle number. If it helps as you go, cross off 1 on the left, cross off 1 on the right, cross off 1 on the left, cross off 1 on the right until you land that middle number. In the second row, you notice none of the numbers are repeating, so you have no mode. In question 1, it asks you 2 things. It asks you what's the best measure of center, okay, the mean, median, or mode. It's mean because there's no outliers. If there was an outlier, you would automatically go to median. And then it asks you to find the range, which is the highest minus the lowest, giving you 66. And then in question 2, when you can order your data from least to greatest if it's easier, but the number that appears the most is 84. You can have multiple modes, however, the number needs to be appearing the same amount of times. So for example, if I also had in here, so I have 79 right here. If I had two more 79s, I would have two modes. I'd have the 84, because it would appear 3 times. And I would also have 79, because it would appear 3 times. Okay? If you have any questions, ask your teacher.